Faxu here, and welcome to another commentary video. So in this video I've kind of just decided to approach kind of just a big topic that I've just kind of been thinking about, and it's mostly stuff that I've been asked by friends of mine, such as, well, how do I get into a fighting game? How do I approach it? How do I learn it? Stuff like that. In all honesty, it's kind of a hard topic, but I'm going to try and sort of try my best to give tips on approaching a fighting game for the first time. So the first thing you obviously want to do is find a game you'd want to learn. So this can kind of be either a really easy thing or a hard thing for most people. I feel like fighting games vary very, very heavily in terms of how they work. So for an example, Street Fighter V, the one I play, it's a very aggressive, but I'd say kind of simple game, if you know what I mean. At first it will seem more complex, but if you ever attempt it and then attempt other fighting games, you'll kind of realise that Street Fighter V is more on the simple side, I'd say. Not that it's bad, obviously, but it's just not as ridiculously complex. It's more of what situation can I put the enemy in to make them have to guess, or what's going to let me get the most pressure on my opponent. It's a very aggressive and oppressing game in general to play. But it's not too hard to learn either, and a lot of stuff you will learn in the game carries over to other fighters. Or you could play something like Tekken 7, which is a very sort of... It's a mix of slow and fast-paced gameplay, and I'd say it's a bit more complex than Street Fighter, as there's a lot of things you have to take into account, such as your movement, your spacing. If a move counter hits, do you have good enough reactions to take advantage of the situation? Essentially, every fighting game, even other Street Fighter games, do not play the same at all. They play very differently, so finding a game to get into can be quite hard, I'd say. Your best bet is just figuring out what you do like. Would you like a more fast-paced game or a slow-paced game? The second thing is finding a character. Now, this is where things get kind of hard, right? Because obviously finding a character is essential to playing a fighting game. But there's loads of different reasons you could play a character. For example, the main reasons I play my characters are based on their looks, personality, and playstyle. So, I don't know, Birdie in Street Fighter V, for example, I think his design looks quite cool. I like the whole punk aesthetic going on. His personality, to me, is just kind of funny. He's just a chav. That's his character. He's just a chav. And playstyle-wise, I kind of just like grapplers and slow characters. They just feel sort of intimidating to play as, if you know what I mean. Because you can kind of tell the opponent's scared to make certain choices. So, I kind of like having that over them. Obviously, some people play characters depending on how good or easy they are as well, which isn't a bad reason to pick a character in general. Most people pick characters because they suit their playstyle. Most people pick characters just because they're good. So, just sort of figure out what you like about a character. The best bet is to look through the cast and just see what you like, or to play online after picking a character and seeing what other characters can do, or looking at footage. So overall, I'd say that's the best approach to learning a character. Or at least finding one. That's the best approach to finding a character. Now, here's where the issue sort of comes in, where people do tend to drop a fighting game or quit it. Now, the three reasons I could really think of for this would be, one, losing. Losing happens to everyone, right? Sometimes you just get your ass handed to you, and it just happens. Sadly, that's the only way of learning a game as well. It doesn't help with fighting games because it's always a one-on-one competitive game where it's either you or them, and if you messed up, you have to take the blame. It's always you. So that's kind of the issue with, fighting games in general, right? Like, it's not a very forgiving genre. So I can understand how it can be sort of hard to continue playing, especially if you're new, where you're going to lose a lot. Usually the best way of dealing with it is just to realise that if you lose, you will learn something from it, hopefully. The second thing is, some people just kind of get intimidated by the depth of the game, or the community of the fighting game community. The community aspect of it, I can kind of understand, because there's a lot going on. One thing I can say about the fighting game community, in terms of the IRL area, not like online, they're usually pretty nice. I have not encountered someone that I've ever thought was just rude, or just a horrible person, really. Most people are really willing to help you if you ask. They're willing to play with you, no matter how good or bad you are. In general, the fighting game community tends to be very nice people that mostly just care about helping others improve, as well as themselves. So overall, yeah, the fighting game community itself I wouldn't say is too intimidating. Just try and get out there a bit more, you know. The other reason is games depth. I can understand that because there's been a lot of games that I've played where I've looked at everything and I'm like, there's no way I'm learning this game. But overall, it's kind of something where you have to make the decision of whether you really want to play this game or not. And if you do, then you're going to have to learn a lot of stuff. As I said earlier, with picking a game, different games are going to be harder or easier as well. So you do have to take that into account when approaching a game. Two other reasons actually, rather than three, are hitting a wall. So plateauing in a sense, where you feel like you're not learning anything. Now, in reality, this tends to happen to every player. No matter how good you are, there's going to come a point where it feels like you're not making progress in terms of learning. And usually it's because you've learned a lot already, meaning there's not a lot left to learn. This is kind of a big issue that even I've struggled with a lot, where it feels like no progress is being made and I'm just losing and not learning from it. The best way to look at it is to really have someone else look at what you're doing and then have them pick out what they think you need to learn. This kind of comes into a coaching aspect. So recently on my streams, I've had a guy in there and he's kind of talked to me about mindset and improving my mindset and my game plan rather than my actual gameplay. So overall, I didn't realise that was something I needed to improve until he mentioned it to me. So overall, it's good to just have a second pair of eyes looking at what you're doing. The other thing you could obviously improve is kind of finding a local scene. Not everywhere is going to have one, so that's kind of a big issue, especially depending on where you live in the world. So, for example, if you live in America, it's going to be really easy to find something near you to play with other people in real life. Same with Asia. But if you're in Europe or Africa or South America, it can be genuinely quite hard to find places to play offline with other people. Near me, there's Winner Stays On, which is a London event. There's also Bracket Reset, which is another London event. But in the UK, there's not too much going on besides a couple events in Newcastle and Scotland. So overall, it can be kind of hard to find stuff. Your best bet is looking online or attempting to start your own event, which can be hard as well because you need equipment and people that are willing to come. Now, the last topic is kind of related to the main topic, which is getting into a fighting game, and it's kind of the difference in the European fighting game community compared to the American one. The American fighting game community has just a big scene in general, due to how large the country is, how easy internet access is, and just overall how many people are in that country. Meaning that, you know, at some point, you're going to easily be able to find people to play with, no matter what state you're in, maybe Alaska. But besides that, it's not really too hard to find games in that scene, whereas with the European one, there's a lot of stuff that kind of splits the scene, and it could be anything from language barriers, a lack of going on, bad internet in general. Not every European country will have good internet, making online event hosting kind of hard for most players, especially for online tournaments, right? So overall, it's kind of an issue that the European FGC faces. There's been a lot of players and content creators that have tried to help push the scene, such as Luffy, who won EVO. He's a French player. He played Rose in Street Fighter 4. He kind of helped put Europe on the map in terms of Street Fighter. Reinhardt is probably the most historical fighting game player in the world, or at least one of them, and he's a British player. He currently lives in Germany, weirdly, but he's known for being good at multiple games. Problem X is the current EVO champion, and he's a British player. Right now, he's looking like one of the strongest contenders in the Street Fighter world today. The only person that's really been rivaled with him is maybe Punk, who's an American player. King J is a content creator, and he mainly produces stuff for Tekken, which is not the series that I play. But overall, he's been well respected due to what he does for the fighting game community, especially the Tekken scene in the UK. And the last two I could think of is Logan Sama, who is a really key commentator for fighting game events, and is a British commentator as well. He really cares about Europe's FGC as a whole, and he does a lot to put us on the map. And it really, really shows, because I feel like we've been getting more exposure because of him mainly. And the last event, really, that I could bring up is Pax and Tyrant, really. Pax and Tyrant make great content on a channel called Frame Advantage. Ranges from tutorials to match analysis, stuff like that. Essentially, they're very, very helpful, and it shows what we can do in the European fighting game community. Overall, that's just my thoughts on certain topics, you know. When it comes to finding communities and getting into communities, don't worry, because, like, I mean, look at me. If I'm able to dress like an idiot and play offline and be confident enough, I'm pretty sure you can too, even if the commentator does mention it on stream.
What is Logan just in the back just chilling?
Logan.
So did you see that picture he took, or I took for him with the guy dressed in a Hago tracksuit?
Right.
So I'm going to download that and put it on my phone, just keep it there for safekeeping.
Yeah, for backup. Yeah.
Just in case Logan tries anything funny. I'm surprised that guy's mom let him out of the house, to be honest with you.
I know. What is that? Is it, you're not under the hat? Is that like a...
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's what he's got on his jumper.
Right.
He's got like a bandana with the same thing.
Right? Wow.
I mean, that stuff costs money.
But overall, that's it for now, really. It's kind of a short video, but I feel like I just wanted to share my thoughts on these different topics and give a little insight from my perspective, really. Because I didn't really want to know whether I wanted to get into the community until I was 14. And I couldn't really, because I couldn't travel at that age, you know? But when I got to the age of 18, I went to Winner Stays On for the first time when I was 18 in November. And that changed my whole outlook on the community as a whole. It changed everything. It made me want to play more. And since then, I don't think I've ever really felt like I didn't want to play fighting games. So that's all for now. You can catch me on Twitter at Faxu_ and the same on Twitch at Faxu_. This is the last video for my college project, and honestly, it's been really fun. I think I'm going to continue making videos. I am trying to stream a lot more as well on Twitch, so keep an eye out for that. Goodbye.
We await your return, warrior.